and we're joined by Scott Miller of Bleacher Report. And Scott, thanks for doing this. Safe to say that Bryce Harper and Mike Trout are viewed differently by baseball people now than they both were a couple of years ago, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. There's no question, Jeff. And good morning to you. They as you said, they came in joined at the hip. And the thing that's always fascinated me, and I think one reason they're always going to remain joined at the hip, is because they were called to the major leagues on the same day. I think it was April 28th of 2012. How weird is that they both start the season in the minors? And, one could have been called up to the majors on Tuesday and the other one on Thursday, but it was the same day. And in fact, I've talked to both of them. They played together on the same team in the Arizona Fall League early on in their pro careers. How would you have liked to gone and see a few of those games, by the way?
And tickets are always available at the Arizona Fall League, aren't they?
I'm sure you could have probably sat behind the plate to watch Trout and Harper play on the same team at that point. But, so because of that, they've remained friends, and they text each other. I don't want to say every day. It's not like they're best buddies. I mean, everybody's busy. The schedule keeps everybody busy, but they text each other fairly frequently. And I know Trout said he texted Harper before they got to Washington this week. So, they're joined. Yeah, they're joined at the hip. They're friends, but I think Harper's the guy that came into the majors with about 5 or 6 years worth of incredible publicity. The Sports Illustrated cover when he was 16. But I think, we'll see what happens. There's still plenty of time. I'm not making any final judgments, but I think 10 baseball people out of 10 right now would easily pick Mike Trout if they were starting a team over Bryce Harper.
Well, now you mentioned that. Can you reiterate just exactly why that would be? Because like you said, 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago, you would have flipped a coin. And now even in the fans' eyes, Mike Trout has just looked head over heels over Bryce Harper.
Yeah, I think, first of all, Trout is he's accomplished far more on the field. I mean, he's hit better. He's a 5-tool player. He's his numbers across the board, I think, offensively are better than Harper. He runs the bases. He's got more stolen bases than Harper. He's stayed healthy, whereas Harper has not. I think across the board for all those reasons, Trout is just, he's really risen to every challenge, whereas Harper, plus Harper's had some, he's showing some frustration on the field from time to time. His full throttle mentality and then the emotions aren't for everybody, including Matt Williams the other day when Matt Williams, the manager of the Nationals, pulled him from the game when he bounced back to the pitcher's mound and didn't run hard to first base. Trout just not only does he do everything right on the field, but he plays with such a joy that he's really magnetic.
Right.
Hey, I'm wondering, look, I'm not going to throw Davey Johnson under the bus, and I'm certainly not going to throw Matt Williams under the bus, but Scott, Mike Scioscia as well as anybody, maybe better than most. I would think Mike Scioscia would be, if I was a young kind of superstarish guy coming up, he'd be the perfect manager for me.
Yeah, I think so because, Scioscia is pretty even keel.
Yeah.
He's old school, but he's got a nice mix of old and new school. He's old school going back to when he played for the Dodgers and caught for all those years, but he also remains young enough. He's only, 51, maybe 52, young enough to relate to the young players of today, like a Trout.
Plus, he's got a teenage son who's a son who's a ball player as well in his early 20s, I think.
Yeah, and you're great point, Jeff. And in fact, his son played at Notre Dame.
Right.
Yeah. So he can. I think he's got that nice mix. He relates to the young players as well as the older players, the veteran players, and he really preaches doing everything right on the baseball diamond. He doesn't cut any corners, and he's not going to browbeat you, but he expects you to run the bases properly, to not waste at bats. To play in the field, you're going to learn from him as well. It's almost like a good teaching environment as well, which for a young guy, even as talented as Harper or Trout, works really well.
Our friend Tom Boswell called Bryce Harper the 7th best player in the Nationals right now, and kind of took him to task for apparently wanting to sit out last Wednesday's game against the Marlins, and avoiding Jose Fernandez to keep a 9-game hitting streak intact. I don't know if that's Kevin Barker to my left here thinks that there's no way in hell a major league player does that. But is there a sense? It's early in Bryce Harper's career, but Scott, are you beginning to get the sense that people in Washington are losing patience with Bryce Harper?
Maybe a little bit. I saw that Boswell reference about wanting to sit against Jose Fernandez. I find that very interesting as well. I mean, I would disagree with your pal sitting right there, Kevin. No offense, Kevin, but I do think there are certain major leaguers that are happy to get a day off when they face a pitcher like Jose Fernandez. I guarantee you there are, but I have never viewed Bryce Harper as one of those kind of guys. And, it's interesting that Boswell, and Jeff, Tom Boswell, I don't think he's not going to just throw out speculation as fact. So he's clearly got somebody in the Nationals organization that has told him that. And, assuming it's true, then shame on Bryce Harper. But there is a question. The question that Boswell brought out the other day in some of this that I do think is legitimate is, how much of the Bryce Harper persona is out for himself, is how much of him is a me guy versus how much of him is a team guy. And you would hope mostly he's going to be a team guy. And but that's, I think, part of smoothing out the rough edges of a guy early in his career. It's almost like early on when you're trying to get that foothold in the major leagues, to a degree, you have to be a me guy to make it in the major leagues. You have to take care of yourself and be overly concerned about your own at-bats and overly concerned about your own game so you can make it in the majors. But there's that fine line, and it's even a finer line for a superstar like Harper, because you've also got, you've got to be a team guy, especially if you got the talent like Harper does, and especially if you're in an organization that's ready to win right now, not an organization like the Astros that you're going to be in last place anyway. 2 years ago, the Nationals had the best record in the majors. Last year, they were disappointing. They think they can get back to where they were 2 years ago. So there's that line where Harper's got to establish himself in the majors, and part of that is being a me guy, but the overall larger picture, you have to be way more of a team guy and help your team. And there is some question right now as Harper figures things out, how much of a team guy he is. And so we'll see where that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, listen, it was good of you to join us today. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
Kevin, Jeff, always a pleasure.